This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. Welcome to episode number 30 of Mountaineer Moment, your podcast covering West Virginia football and basketball with all the latest breaking news, game previews, game recaps, all that fun stuff. And we've got another fun one for you today that's certainly become, I guess, a staple here on Mountaineer Moment. Just a fun one with some over or unders relating to the Mountaineers' upcoming matchup, which this week just so happens to be against the Utah Utes, making their first ever trip to Morgantown. They've played a couple times in bowl games, one not that long ago, a few years ago. And Mountaineers obviously looking to get back on track after an embarrassing loss to open up conference play, sitting now at 2-2 and 0-1 overall in the conference. But Utah's coming in with a chip on their shoulder, a little angry, a little mad because of what happened to them on their home field in their Big 12 opener against Texas Tech. Falling in not so pretty of fashion, 31-10. Against Texas Tech, who came in and 34-10, came in and proved to be way too much for Utah to handle. Utah, again, in that game, they were ranked 16th in the country, and now they've fallen out of the AP poll, and you bet they're pissed off about that, and they're coming to Morgantown looking to avenge that. So Mountaineers got an angry team coming to town. Again, this is Mountaineer Moment, episode number 30. Several episodes every week with pregame coverage, game previews. Again, this one's over-unders, some keys to victory, things to watch for. The last episode previous to this one, which is already posted, is a look at that Utah talented quarterback that they've got, Devon Dampier, and what he brings to the table with his arm and, more importantly, more specifically with his legs and what he's done at a previous stop in his career, what he brings to Utah, and what kind of fit he could be causing for the Mountaineer defense. So if you're interested in learning about that, flip over to that episode after this one's over and check it out on my thoughts on the Utah quarterback and what the West Virginia defense needs to do to be able to defend against him. All right, over or under, just a few of them to watch for. 3, to be exact, in this Mountaineer matchup with the Utah Utes at home in Morgantown. Now, this one, I wouldn't say it's a staple as an over-under, but it's something we've certainly talked about through the brief history of this podcast. But this one is interesting. All right, so 2.5. The line is set at 2.5 WVU quarterbacks to take a snap. Now, this is as I call it, the ever-evolving, ever-changing quarterback room for the Mountaineers, and quarterback controversy, and then it's not a controversy, quarterback controversy, then it's not a controversy, back and forth. Heading into the season, obviously, Rich Rod was very clear that he likes the talent in his quarterback room, thinks he's got several guys that he can plug in and play, and he's done that to a certain extent this year. But Nico Markiel, returning quarterback from last season, who backed up Garrett Green, for a couple years, has been, I should say, the starting quarterback through 4 games. Through the ups and the downs of West Virginia's season so far, he's been the starter. Scotty Fox has gotten time as a freshman. Khalil Wilkins has gotten a little time with his legs. Jalen Henderson's gotten a drive here and there. As a matter of fact, he was the only quarterback to lead a touchdown drive in that blowout loss to Kansas. Game was already out of hand at that point, but he led a 95-yard drive and got it done mostly with his legs. Picked up about 79 yards, I think, on the ground. And so there's four quarterbacks right there that I just named that have played. Now, the line is set at 2.5 quarterbacks that will play because, believe it or not, or again, maybe you believe me now because of that explanation, but the over has hit over the last 2 games against Pitt and against Kansas. 3 quarterbacks have taken a snap. So West Virginia's gone over that mark. Will they go over that mark here? I don't know. But I think the line is set at a good place. Now, there's news coming out early part of the week, of Utah week, that Nico Markiel is dealing with a foot injury and is in Colorado seeing a foot specialist. Some sort of nagging pain that he's been feeling in his foot for a couple weeks. Maybe why he looks a little slow. I don't know. But that throws a wrench into this. He's listed, I believe, as questionable for the Mountaineer matchup with Utah. Now, okay, right? That's interesting. But if he's in Colorado, right? P.S. The game again isn't in Utah, right? He's not next door. He's time zones away from Morgantown. Apparently, I don't know. Maybe someone knows how long he's been there, how long he's going to be there, whatever's going on. But okay, wow, right? For all I know, at the time you're listening to this, he's back in Morgantown, and we already know that. But I don't, as it stands right now, last I saw is that this kid's in Colorado, seeing a foot specialist, long way away from Morgantown. But before I even knew that, right, I was planning on doing an over/under for the quarterbacks. I was going to list it at 2.5, and I was even going to say okay, maybe based on what happened last week and what we saw we talked about this in the Kansas reaction episode and talked about is it time for Jalen Henderson? Is it time for a new quarterback to really take the reins of this offense, not just be plug and play sometimes, but hey, Jalen Henderson, you got the keys, it's your turn, let's go. There was the potential for that, with or without Nico being injured, with or without him being in Colorado. But now, okay, this could happen. Now, if Nico is healthy Saturday and ready to go, will he start? I don't know. Now, this is the most I've, went into a game with, okay, I'm not going to be super surprised if Jalen Henderson walks out there with the, first snap of the game. So 2.5, I would still take the under, personally, even though it's hit the over last couple weeks. We'll see. I don't know. We kind of just explained the whole thing, but we'll see how that shakes out. But overall, regardless of the over-under thing with the quarterbacks, don't be surprised if it's Jalen Henderson this week getting the runs and runs with the first team. And so if, again, we've talked about it, maybe Jalen Henderson or Khalil Wilkins or even Scotty Fox is just a better fit because they've got a little more speed, a little more quickness than Nico Markule does for this Rich Rod offense. And West Virginia, again, against Pitt with Ty Edwards, who's doubtful, apparently, heading into this matchup with Utah. We've proven an ability to be able to run the football with Ty Edwards especially. But the way the pass blocking has been and the way, Nico's taken a beating and unable to escape, certain things, he hadn't scrambled for a whole lot of yards. The other quarterbacks on this roster are more capable of doing that. And so given the personnel, given what's happened so far this season, given what you might just need to be effective in this system, maybe it is going to be Jalen Henderson time on Saturday against Utah, and we'll see what happens. All right, number 2 over/under has to do with that aforementioned Utah quarterback Devon Dampier. So another dual threat quarterback this weekend. Again, we went all in great detail about him and what he poses as a threat to the Mountaineers. You can check out that episode again. But obviously he got him off to a 3-0 start, transferring from New Mexico, and then they fall at home to the Red Raiders in a blowout loss, 34-10. He threw 2 picks, didn't throw any touchdowns. They struggled to run the football, all of this. But this is a quarterback that's similar to what the Mountaineers have already seen. Parker Navarro, actually, again, on that episode that I'm keep plugging away, broke down the similarities between these two, and it's pretty remarkable how similar these guys, what they did last season in 2024, even, the fact that they're both around the same height and same weight, pretty crazy. But Mountaineers have seen that, been there, done that, struggled against it in Parker Navarro and Jalen Daniels, who's a capable runner too. So the reason for the line being set at 260 total yards for the Utah QB is that through 4 games, he's averaging just about that. He's averaging just shy of 200 yards passing and about 60 yards rushing. So the question is, will he reach his season average numbers in Morgantown? And obviously we here certainly hope not. But I would take the over here. I think that's the safer play. Again, I think he's coming in with something to prove, as well as this whole Utah team. Now, I hope they don't prove anything. But 260 is not that much, and I think he's a kid that rushed for 19 touchdowns and 1,100 and something yards at New Mexico last year. Just crazy. And I think I made the prediction last week that I thought Kansas was going to try to get Jalen Daniels a little bit more involved in the run game than he had been, and I think he would have been even more involved in the run game if it wasn't such a blowout. He had 69 yards, I believe, but just on a few carries. But I kind of get the same sense in Utah, or out of Utah in Morgantown, because they struggled to run the football in game number 4 against Texas Tech, but through 3 games, let me tell you, they ran it and ran it well. 12 touchdowns, 900 yards, like almost 50 carries a game. I think on the road, with Dampier throwing a couple picks last week, I think they're going to try and run the football. So keep an eye out for that. But I'd take the over as far as his yardage. I don't think that necessarily means West Virginia's going to lose, but I would take the over there. This one regarding turnovers forced by West Virginia is one that we used last week, and it just didn't cash. 1.5 turnovers forced by West Virginia. That was the exact line set last week, and West Virginia didn't force any turnovers for the first time this season. But similar to Jalen Daniels and the conversation we had about him last week, Kansas quarterback, Dampier's been prone to some turnovers in his career through 12 touchdowns and 12 interceptions last season at New Mexico. But, if West Virginia wants any chance as a home underdog to pull this upset, they're going to need to make some big-time plays defensively. You got an offense that's struggling. You got an offense that's now even more injury-riddled than we even knew or even thought possible. Maybe, I don't know. We know it now, obviously, but I would take the over here. I think Zach Alley, I still trust in him. I still trust in this defense, right? I mean, it's really hard playing defense when you got this offense. Just saying. And they've been effective this season. They really have. It's a shame that they're sitting at 2-2 and 0-1 in the conference, but they've been effective. And I think, they're coming out. Everybody's coming out, both teams, because they got blown out in week 1. I mean, they got something to prove too. And Mountaineers they have something to prove in front of their home fans. And so let's take the over here. I think that West Virginia can force some pressure, force a fumble, get a pick out of Dampier, and see how that can hopefully boost the Mountaineer offense to go score some points, as it did against Pitt. I mean, that defense played well, stayed in it, got stops when we needed it, and look at what it led to. It led to the Mountaineers getting 3 straight scoring drives on offense. Who would have thought that was possible, right, given what we were seeing to the season through that, at that point, and through the game in the Backyard Brawl at that point. So let's get some turnovers. We're going to need it. We're going to need it until we see more of this offense. You're going to think, okay, we need some turnovers here. So, all right, that is over-unders for West Virginia's matchup with Utah. Again, a couple more episodes coming this way as part of the countdown to kickoff for the Mountaineers against Utah. Kickoff at 3:30 on Saturday in Morgantown. Looking to bounce back. Again, more episodes coming, so be on the lookout for that on Mountaineer Moment. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Let's go Mountaineers.